Hi there, and welcome back to OwlDragon Adventures. I'm Scott Kegler,
And I'm Rob McPherson.
and today we have another review for a game that Rob picked up a couple months ago.
Yeah. So this one is the Night Cage that I picked up in my friendly local game store on a whim.
Mm-hmm. And it's designed by Chris McMahon, Christopher Ryan Chan, and Rosswell Saunders, and published by Smirk and Laughter Games, I believe.
Yep. So I was just at my friendly local game store, browsing around, seeing what I wanted to pick up. Actually, I think I was looking for Root, if I'm not mistaken, at the time. But I found this in their editor's picks, their staff picks section. And I had it in my hand, and the guy behind the counter just called over. He's like, "It's a great game. You need to grab it." I was like, "All right, twist my arm." So I did. So the premise of this game is that you are a prisoner who wakes up in a prison cell that has two tunnels leading out of it. You have a single candle that is lit, and you are crawling through these tunnels trying to find keys to get to a gate where you make your way out. You play with a minimum of 4 characters, but you can play with up to 5 characters, and you need to get a key per player and then get all of the characters onto the same gate in order to put the keys into the gate and escape. So if you're playing with 1 player, you play with all 4. If you're playing with 2, it's 2 and 2. Mm-hmm. 3, you play with 1 each, and then there's an automatically driven one or a group driven one. And then 4, obviously 1 each, and 5 is 1 each. It's a tile placement game, so you have your stack of tiles. It reminds me very much of Carcassonne in that sense. Mm-hmm. It's actually how I got my wife to play, is by telling her, yeah, no, it's kind of like Carcassonne, just really dark. And so you just, every time you move any place that has a connection, you flip over a tile and you place it there. And there's some enemies and there's some pits and traps and everything along the way. It's a very simple game. That was kind of it. Your options are you stay and you move.
Yeah.
There's some nuances to that, of course, as with any game, and there's some advanced rules. But at the core of it, it's literally you move your token, you place the tiles, and you move on with the game.
It's very abstract in that way. It's very little abstract with some thematic abilities, like so. And I would say even asymmetrical. It's just because not having
it's not asymmetrical at all. Yeah. No, it's everyone's got the same abilities.
Yeah, they too.
So the way that they describe being able to pick up the keys is you have a candle in one hand, so you can only pick up 1 key. So you can't, like, if you find 2 keys, you can't pick up a key and give it to a teammate or anything like that. You can only have the 1 key on you. Now, the trick with this game is as soon as you don't have line of sight, which is just 1 tile away on a tile, it disappears from the game. So if you found a key and you already have one, if you move away from it, that key goes away, which adds a little bit of tenseness to it, because if you want to stay, you have to discard these tokens these tiles as well. So there's definitely...
they can trigger events too.
And they can trigger events as well. So... Really simple little game, really lightweight game. Even the advanced rules, I think, are fairly lightweight. But so let me dive into the actual review proper of it. So the first one is gameplay. As I said, very simple, very straightforward. It's, in my opinion, very zen in that sense. It's just you move, you place the tiles, and you move on. One of my favorite parts of it, honestly, is once you've moved your token, is making sure that all of the tiles that are on the board are still supposed to be on the board. So it's that, like, doing that vision check. Okay, yep, all right, yep, no, okay, this one's got to go away, this one's got to go away. Oh, forgot to place a tile here. I don't know why, I really enjoy it. Very straightforward game. I was able to get my wife to play it, which adds a little bit of a bump for me because she's not the biggest of gamers. But this is going to be a high for me on gameplay.
Yeah, I've only had the 1 playthrough, and I've watched you, I think, play it again when we had a game day where it was happening when we were playing another game and it was at a table. I for my first experience, initial reactions, I would say it was a high, and it's very intuitive. It's fun. It really leans into the kind of the nightmare, because it seems like it's more like a prisoner's nightmare than it is.
Yes.
Like you don't necessarily feel like you're actually escaping anything other than this dream.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I liked it. I liked the gameplay was pretty quick to get into, and like any cooperative game, I find these are great for an experienced player, but they're also really great to get into someone. You said with your way for other players that may they're not sure, they haven't played a ton of great games, but you're getting them more interested in the hobby. This is the type of game where you'd be like, oh, I can help you out with your turn and give questions,
which is a great segue into accessibility.
Yeah,
which I got to put it as a high because it's, as I said, you play, you move, you stay.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of it. Once it gets to the very dregs of the game where you're running for that end, there's a few more rules that add on, but nothing really complex. So it's got to be a high accessibility for me, even with the advanced rules, which basically just add when the monsters appear, bigger things happen. Instead of it just hitting you in one direction, like one of them goes across the diagonals and turns them all into holes in the ground instead. Very simple upgrades that add enough variability to play, but without adding complexity.
Yeah, I would say it's I would say it's probably still high for me. I almost go medium just because there's some of the monster rules and the pitfall rules might throw off a new player. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think it's a pretty accessible game for a new player.
So that leads us on to design. So for me, the design is a high. In case you can't tell, I really do enjoy this game. But the design is a high for me. It's very good on the thematic. Now, I will put a disclaimer here. I do have the Kickstarter version. I was able to get myself a copy of that. So some of the elements in this are definitely a little bit better. Like for my tile tower, I have an acrylic tile tower, which for me, that's kind of a must. Very well built. It looks like a candle that as you pull the tiles out of it, it's going lower and lower until you have a burnt out candle at the end. So that's a lot of fun. They have a cardboard version that comes with it. In fact, I have that as well. There's a couple of the tokens that you spend, the nerve tokens, which let you do extra actions on the turn. Those are acrylic as well, which is really nice. Mm-hmm. And then, the last thing that they added in the Kickstarter edition, which... Okay, they gave me 5 little flickering candles, battery-powered candles that are surprisingly bright.
If you want to play in the dark, I guess.
Yeah, they serve no gameplay purpose. We are going to, at some point, turn off all the lights and play just by candlelight because I have the candles. Yeah. So design for me is a high. They did a really good job. The artwork is great. Everything looks on brand.
Yeah, I mean, they really embrace it for a game that is so dark. Like, all the components are very dark. I think it's still all very, everything's legible. Like, the iconography is all easy to follow. Like, not that there's a ton of iconography.
No.
But understanding the symbols is relatively simple. I think the design makes sense for me there. It fits the theme, again, to your point. Like, it's again, this nightmare experience. Like, tiles are falling off behind you in the same way, where you can't tell where you're going in a dream.
Right, so the maze is changing around you, which is fun.
So I think those are all really good designs. So I would say pretty much high for me as well. I enjoy, again, only one playthrough for myself.
So I forgot to mention one aspect of it that falls into the design as well, which is there's a separate piece that sits off to the side of the board. When you do remove a tile from the board, you sort it into specific piles on that tile. Mm-hmm. So you can tell how many keys have you lost? How many gates have you lost? How many monsters have you gone through? So you can kind of get a judge for, all right, we only have 10 tiles left and we've only seen one monster. That's not good for us.
Right.
So I thought that was a really clever design element as well. That was the design of it, which brings us to quality. So I'm going to do a 2-part kind of on this quality because, again, I have the Kickstarter version. If you have the Kickstarter version, it's got to be a high for me because the acrylic pieces add a lot. There are metal keys, which I believe are standard to the base game as well, because I do not have cardboard alternatives to those, and I have cardboard alternatives to all the other stuff that was upgraded.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, that's awesome, because the keys have some heft to them. They look great. The acrylic tile tower is amazing. The cardboard's good quality cardboard. I will say that storage solution is non-existent in here. It's just an open box, which makes me a little sad. Usually Kickstarter games have some better storage solutions, but I do have a 3D printer, so I was able to solve that pretty quick.
Yeah, and that's where I think I land in the middle. It's like watching putting away. It's a little bit. I think you could use a little bit of a better storage solution. Other than that, I agree on the Kickstarter points. The acrylic candle tower, I can't imagine having a cardboard and lasting very long. Or I mean, again,
Mine's still pop in the original cardboard of the box.
and it's like this is the kind of game where if you enjoy it or you see some gameplay of it, and we'll have some stuff up as well from our. I think you did. Was this an unboxing or did we do one of this?
I honestly don't remember if I did.
Oh, but we'll have some pictures for you to look at. Yeah, check it out. If you can get a copy still while they're available, the Kickstarter upgraded. If it's a game you think you're going to enjoy, I would just spend it's not very much more to get the Kickstarter copy right now.
Yeah.
Just because any game I love, I'm going to want better components because
Absolutely.
it's going to take more. You're going to take more abuse.
Yep.
So I would say it's a middle for me right now, just on the storage solution. And I'm becoming kind of a snob on storage solutions.
So am I. So I got to put this as a middle for standard game and a middle plus for Kickstarter because the storage solution really does still hurt it for me. But I'm going to give it a little bit of a plus for the acrylic pieces in the Kickstarter.
And finally, that brings us to value.
So this was a $50 game. So far, I've played it solo about a half dozen times, and with other players about another half dozen times at this point. I do get this to the table quite frequently. It's very simple to pull out and play, especially now that I have my own storage solutions in there. So it's got to be a high for me on that, just because I think that this is one that's going to always be on my shelf, at least for the foreseeable future, and it's going to hit the table very frequently. They say it's a 50-minute gameplay time. As always, don't expect that on your first playthrough, although pretty close because of how quick you can get into it if you understand the style of game. But on subsequent gameplays, absolutely 50 minutes all day long.
Only one playthrough, but for me, it's all high marks for me on value because the things I see, and I see how much you appreciate it. And again, I'm looking at the value of what I think a gamer that's going to enjoy this game. What I like about it is it's abstract, so that to that point, you're not having to
But it's a strong themed abstract.
Well, right, but you're not having to thumb through a huge rule book,
right?
Like with a more complicated game. So that's a high mark for me. It is for me, it's a solo game that has again win conditions. You're not playing a solo version or having to play a variant version of solo rules.
Yeah, and so normally I'm not a fan of games when they say, yeah, it's a solo game. You get to play all the characters. I'm like, that's not really solo, but it works with this game.
Well, because it's abstract puzzle.
Yeah.
So I think that's because I think it's more frustrating when you're trying to
differing tactics.
Although it depends, because I can we'll talk about those other videos. I like tactical placement. But I for me it's good solo. It's abstract. It's pretty accessible, and it's just a game I could see you just bringing out to the table because it's I think for a mainstay, so I think it's gonna be high value. You get a lot of play out of this. Good one for late night game, end of the night doesn't a horror game that's easy to get to the table.
Right. You might not win that late at night, but it's always fun. So that for me, I think that brings it to a 4 or 5.
I think I'm a 4 out of 5.
Yeah. So for me, it's a 4.5.
Okay, I'm a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
Yeah, for me, it was just an accessibility is. I think it is easy, but I think some players might struggle with it. Some of the components, and for me, it's the storage solution. But I think 4 or 5 is still a really good game. I would recommend it if you're looking for, particularly if you're looking for horror games. We're just out of the Halloween season, but it's a good, October game to break out too. Yeah, absolutely. So great game. Great job to Smirk and Laughter on this one. Really enjoyed it and really looking forward to having it on my shelf for years to come. Yeah, with that, we wish you good luck on your next tabletop adventures. And thanks for joining us on ours.